can't answer anymore. Alright, MaNa loves this opener. In the bottom left, as the red Protoss, he is MaNa. And in the bottom right, as the blue Zerg, it is Lambo. MaNa really loves sending out the probe first and foremost. So this actually delays the first probe production. Which is always kind of I feel like it's so awkward. But while some Protosses are like 50-50 or 30-70 or something like that on that they do this, and that's understandable, MaNa is like 90 or 100% on doing this opener. You know, it's like not something he mixes in to mess up his opponent occasionally. Like, he just really likes to make them take the other hatchery. In general, on most maps, and follows up with, okay, usually Twilight Council, I won't lie. He usually does do the whole block the hatchery into a depth thing. But he does also sometimes just follow up with like a Stargate or something like that. And I was like, oh, right. He just really likes it. Yeah, friending people on Steam is, like, it makes sense, because that's how you invite people. But, yeah, Twitch friends don't do anything. Twitch friends just lets you see what your friends are watching, so... Yeah, Twitch friends doesn't make much sense. Building a network like LinkedIn? That's kind of odd, though, isn't it? Like, people join LinkedIn under the assumption that that's what they have to do. People don't join Twitch under the assumption that they are expected to make communities and make connections and network. Some people are just creepers. I mean, that is true. But, I mean, the real answer to most questions you have in life, in general, about anything, most concerns you have in life, most grievances, you know what it is? The other people just didn't even care. They didn't think. There's no thinking involved. Literally, they were just like, oh, I like that person, I friend that person. With no thinking as to why, or what it entails, or what it means. They just do it. That's what I've learned. What is the saying? Don't attribute it to maliciousness when it's just ignorance or something like that? Yeah, whatever. Alright, so I did say that MaNa does follow it up usually with the Twilight Council. This is the thing, you know, like capital bold text, the thing of ZvP is to go for the very, very early probe to guarantee that blocked hatchery. If you just try and block off of a pylon scout, if they 16 hatch, they get hatched down. If they 15 hatch, obviously they get the hatch down, but not against the fastest probe block possible, which is what MaNa does. And then, after you've done that, you go into Twilight Council in the depths. It is the thing. MaNa does this a lot. MaNa was doing this kind of slightly before it was even super, super popular, and he did like the Dark Shrine version, which we see again here. So it's not surprising, but he does still do the pylon block even without the adept follow-up. 100%. Occasionally does something differently. But of course, Lambo's figured out what it is. I think he already knew. He's facing MaNa, that probe block happened, and hey, Twilight Council is seen. Extra thing you'd love to see is either the Dark Shrine, but you kind of just have to assume the worst. It's very dangerous for the Zerg player to assume that it is only Resident Enclaves. Even if they get that confirmed scouting in the main, like they don't see a Dark Shrine here, or they saw guys out of gas, probes out of gas, it's still pretty dangerous not to get those 4 crawlers. And I'm getting really worried for Lambo. Like, really worried. I mean, the lane numbers are okay, the roaches are okay, I love the queen top of the War Prism, but, where are the spores? He's gonna lose! Although MaNa's not warping those GPs yet. Give it 5 more seconds. He is finding a little location off over into the 3rd hatch. Here come the DTs. Nope. Still Adepts, actually. Well, Lambo still isn't making square prowlers, so I'm still a little worried. If MaNa doesn't warp in DTs and somehow... What? Oh, missed opportunity there from MaNa. Spore Crawlers finally start, but took a long time. MaNa, I mean, okay, so let's be positive for a second. Kudos to Lambo for having those queens constantly on that warp prism. Well done there. Little poetry snaps all around for that one. That was good. If MaNa had free access into the main base with a warp prism, maybe he does warp in those DTs. But he definitely could have gotten more damage done. Definitely. Never attribute to maliciousness what can be attributed to competence. There we go. Thank you. So the game goes on, even though I feel like Lambo was really quite in a dangerous position. So let's also talk about what Lambo has done without those spore crawlers. He got to a very nice drone count. He didn't really have to overmake lings, although 15 roaches is a fair amount. But the Adepts never really pressured him a ton. They didn't dig into the drone line. They didn't take out the army, and they weren't even that plentiful. There was a couple of warp-ins prior to the attack, and then like one warp-in with the attack before we even finally had the ETs. That's clever. That was nice. Using the Archon splash damage to kill a creep tumor. Clever boy. So anyways, we now have Lambo at 65 workers to MaNa's 48 as MaNa is trying to set up a third Nexus. MaNa just simply did not do enough damage, both literally, like he didn't kill anything. There's no numbers popping up here, as well as not scaring Lambo enough so that he didn't do the macro that he did. Like this is a bit of a problem. Not something that he can't overcome, but I'm now very worried for MaNa. He still has a Warp Prism, trying to find an opening somewhere. Gets an Overlord with the Archons. And Adepts over on the top side are trying to go into the third base, or at least delay a fourth. Which they won't. Lambo's on top of it. Lambo is getting up to +1, some typical hooks, Roachborn as well. Finally loses a drone, maybe even 2. Oh, 3! No way, man. That's a bit dangerous. Spore Crawler and Queen. You can't escape, that was a little scary. Adepts with an Observer is not a terrible idea at all. Cleans up about 3 or 4 creep tumors. And the Archons are still sharking around. MaNa doing a pretty nice job keeping Lambo at home, keeping tabs on Lambo, I should say, mostly. Lambo didn't have a prepared attack. I think he is still waiting a bit for that +1 to finish, but this might be the time to do it now. But anyways, MaNa was at least keeping track of where the army was, and now seeing it in the middle of the map, that is a little bit concerning. Might prompt a warp in or some more, even more shield batteries, a recall, definitely on the Archons and the Warp Prism. So Lambo was kind of just biding his time, and MaNa was trying to be an annoying mosquito. Didn't really work out. The mosquito didn't do very much. It didn't get killed, didn't get slapped down, but this is going to be a difficult hold. MaNa going into double Immortal production might be good against the Roaches, and they are very microable, so they might even be helpful against the Ravagers. But real problem is that they don't help out that much against the overwhelming Lings and Banelings that usually accompany Zerg's armies. Zerg armies. That's the difficult part. DTs might be able to kill a 4th base, and that would be nice. Lambo is somewhat committed with this attack. Not throwing up +2, not going into infestation pits, not going up to 70 or 75 drones. But that would not make up for what I think is about to happen. MaNa's already lost 8 probes, and while Lambo's going to lose a couple of drones and his hatchery, can he just win the game with this army? Shield Battery's trying to help out, but the Banelings from the backside are going to conquer everything. It doesn't even look like it's that close. The Archons, although they were helped out by the shield batteries for a hot second, could not stand up to the entire might of the Roach army. Ravager's also finding the rest of MaNa's army on the bottom side. I guess he was trying to determine where the army was actually going to hit, but the potential collapse that MaNa could have had in the Roach Ravager army didn't really work out. MaNa lost his third base army, and then he lost his natural base army. While the immortal count's still up at 5, I don't think they're going to be enough to deal with this. MaNa forced to tap out. GG. Very unfortunate. Because those DTs, if they were warped in instantly, I think would have done game-ending damage, if not straight up won the game. If you kill a hatchery, that's usually kind of it. And I think they could have killed a hatchery. But he probably thought that there's always a little bit of that, like, you respect your opponent too much. You just figure they're going to have those perfectly timed spore crawlers. Because Zergs, they're playing a dangerous game, they don't get spore crawlers. So you just assume, yeah, of course Lambo has spore crawlers. Was probably thinking more of using DTs to just harass. And maybe even clear up, like, creep tumors. We've seen that. And wasn't really necessarily pinning his hopes on warping them in as fast as possible. Which is just too bad. If he had... this might be a 1-0 in the other direction. On to Everdream for game number 2 in the top right. Once again, sending that probe out. He is Liquid MaNa. In the bottom left, as the blue Zerg, he is Lambo. So at this point, when you face MaNa as a Zerg player, you are just, I think, already planning on getting this third hatch. It's a very frustrating thing. If you just play a game of Zerg, even if you're not very good, if you just play a game of Zerg and they block your hatchery, it's like anything, right? They stopped you from doing something that you wanted to do. Because that thing you wanted to do made your life just a little bit easier. It's frustrating. The actual, like... I guess if you could reduce the effectiveness of the probe block into numbers, I feel like that number isn't very large, right? Like, I feel like it's that big of a deal. Because if it was truly the biggest deal, the hatchery going down at the third instead of the natural, this would be done by everyone all the time. And granted, it was at one point done by everyone at all times. But that fell off pretty quickly. So, I mean, I like that MaNa... I feel like MaNa's entire... Like, his Starcraft 2 persona is very different from his real-life personality. Because the Starcraft 2 personality is just be as annoying as possible. He chose the right race for that. So it's in line with him. But as a Zerg player, I think you already are mentally prepared. You're like, it's MaNa, of course he's going to do this thing. Which also not only helps against the hatchery block mentality, but also against the Resonant Enclaves. Because that still is a build, despite it being now old and kind of dusty and... yeah, it's okay, but not great. It's still a build that frustrates players, because it does feel like all it takes is a slight misjudgment, and then suddenly everything's gone to shit. And that doesn't feel good when we play games like that. A Lambo should be very aware of the possibility of a Twilight Council. The question for Zerg players is, once they see that, Warp Gate started immediately, so they say, okay, it's not a Stargate. The next question is, when does that robo go down? Is it the first thing that goes down, and it's some of a weird robo opener, or is it the second thing later or sooner after the Twilight Council? Is it an Archon drop, or is it a Dark Shrine, or is it a Adept all-in, or, anything off of that, basically. You got, 4 options here a Lambo has to consider. Resonant Enclaves all-in, like actually 6+ gateways. Resonant Enclaves 4 gateways, expansion. And then I guess another option would be Resonant Enclaves 4 gates with Dark Shrine. Then there's the Archon drop, which at this point is almost always the Dark Shrine, not a Templar Archives. Yeah. Those 4 options, right? Yeah. And then maybe you're also wondering if it could be one of those robo-openers that don't really happen that much often anymore, but I don't know. I feel like they're not too worried about that. Still, a couple things to worry about, right? This time, MaNa still has guys in gas. I feel like he's going to do the Dark Shrine again. It is just the 4 gateways, and Lambo is prepping like you would expect as a player to prep against Resident Enclaves. Dark Shrine will be coming down, what, 15 seconds? It'd already be put down, wouldn't it? Maybe not, maybe not. We have seen another follow-up to Resident Enclaves, which is kind of fun, more than anything else. The Robotics Bay follow-up and the Disruptors can be an effective follow-up. But I haven't seen Probe take out of these gases unless I missed it. I might have missed it, but usually if it's kept in, it's either Dark Shrine, okay, that does go down, or the Disruptor thing. It's okay. Dark Shrine. It still feels like it's a little bit later than last game, or maybe I'm just crazy. I don't know. Regardless. Lambo is absolutely going to have Spore Crawlers on time. 5 minutes here. Starting them up. They are not that long of a building to build. And the Dark Shrine will not win this game at all this game. But MaNa has committed a lot to a lot of adepts. I think that's the difference from this game to last. Last game it was like 6 in the front line or 8 in the front line, and then 4 more warped in eventually. But obviously here we have a lot more adepts already available. 12 already available. And if that Dark Shrine was a common, it's going to be coming later. So Lambo should be totally fine. Already dealing with the first wave pretty well. Is the type of Zerg player dedicate to a Spine Crawl out his third. It's kind of the advice given to most Zerg players is build up the Spine Crawl at the third, but some Zerg players try to skip it. Queens want to keep track of that Warp Prism. You don't want to be pulled apart, but there's also Lings there, so I don't think it was going to do very much. A lot of Roaches on top of these Adepts, going to grab maybe 1 or 2 before they shade out. 3 Adepts have gone down so far. Resources trade still favorable for MaNa. But these DTs are not going to get the damage that they want. And this is a little bit dangerous too, because that Warp Prism is still full of Adepts. So just going maybe for a bit of a power punch to the main. I mean, theoretically, he could take on all these units, because he can just try and be out of the Spore Crawler range, but Lambo should not let his Lings get killed by DTs. There we go. Gets a Creep Tumor, why not? Yep, that's a good thing. So, okay. Resources lost still in favor, I think, of Lambo. Or should have MaNa? No, I'm actually in favor of Lambo. Losing 5 more Adepts over, I guess, the left side. I wasn't paying attention, so. Okay. Really important thing from this point on is the follow-up. Did Lambo go back into droning fast enough? Did MaNa actually grab a 3rd Nexus at a decent time? Another important thing is keeping these Adepts alive. They're constant pressure that you don't want to just give away. Archon's also helping out. Nicely saved there from MaNa. You don't want to give this away because they are constant pressure. Lambo always has to worry about them, but also, if push came to shove, these are Adepts that could help you on the defense. The Archons are now where it's at. MaNa not just going up to another Robo this game. He's actually adding on that Robotics Bay as well. Could we see Colossus and Blink started up? I think we could. Could we see Disruptors? I would hope so. I want Disruptors, but we'll see. Yeah, Colossus. So I expect that Blink to also be started eventually. I didn't think you usually got double Robo for this, but yeah, I definitely haven't looked too much into it. I'm just, like, I just wondering, because... Alright, well, Adepts are cleaned up. That kind of sucked. They just walked right into an entire army. Very ineffective there. Anyways, the double Colossus thing, you want 4 Colossus. That's a good number in PvZ. You don't usually go higher. And I don't know if you're really adding on. Usually you wouldn't add too much more from the Robos. The 4 Colossus, whatever Immortals you got, so 3 Immortals right now. And then usually you'd see, Parting, for instance. Nothing but Blink Stalkers after that. So the double Robo feels... Maybe it's a speed thing. He really wants 4 Colossus over any amount of Stalkers. And I guess that would be the case since he has not even started Blink, so... Bit of a different take on the Colossus opener. The Colossus follow-up, I should say. The Colossus style. That's a good word for it. Lots of shield batteries are prepped for this. He's got the overcharge, but that is going to be a feisty Zerg army. Once again, hitting his +1 finishes. Lambo already has some difficult hooks and is close to max out. Not quite there. 60 supply lead for the Zerg player, and he's coming in from 2 different angles. The Colossus need those force fields to protect them, but on the backside, he didn't account for the Banelings. Oh no, he does save one of the Colossus as the 3rd one popped out. That's the good news. But all of the Immortals, I believe, have gone down. And Archon's stuck in the natural as well. Reinforcements being killed before they even enter into play. And this seems like it's going to be it. It's really unfortunate about those backside Banelings. MaNa needed to have more protection. GG. But on top of more protection, he just wanted to do more things with this opener in both games. We see enough openers like that. The Adepts don't necessarily have